so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we are firmly convinced that creating success and happiness is rooted in understanding the ultimate nature of reality and the fact that as human beings, we are all immensely powerful fractals of the one and only source consciousness, which creates and animates all things. Now, of course, understanding this powerful truth is one thing. Applying this incredibly empowering wisdom to everyday life, well, that's another, which is exactly why we provide you with a fresh serving of soul food for thought 5 days a week to help constantly remind you of what matters most. You are it. And I'm your host, Brandon Beecham. I'm the reflection and extension of you who will be here each Wednesday interviewing a different consciousness changemaker. And on the other 4 weekdays, leading the way to ensure that your perspective is consistently expanded, your vibration is constantly elevated, and your heart is overflowing and full. Also, this episode of the Positive Head Podcast is being brought to you thanks to the support of Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online, and you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. All right, all you positive heads, welcome back. Here we go again. It is what's the word for Tuesday? What rhymes with Tuesday that's good? Taco Tuesday? Maybe some of you are having tacos. Tacos are positive, right? It's Magical Mondays. It's Taco-tastic Tuesdays. And I'm happy to be here with you guys, as always, to connect and grow and share and learn. We teach best what we most need to learn, so I always like to make that point. I'm here as a student always first, and any teaching is secondary, and I think that is really important as we all grow. Got to be really careful with that spiritual narcissism. I am all-knowing guru. No, I'm not. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know, but I do have some strong opinions and feel confident that I'm in alignment on a lot of things, and we have a sensitive subject to talk about today that popped up twice this morning as I was determining, getting in the flow, allowing what is meant to come through today. That's the beautiful thing about this show. More and more, the more I allow, the less I plan, the more spontaneous it will just sort of emerge oftentimes where it becomes apparent to me what I'm supposed to talk about. And what happened this morning is in the Facebook group, Sophia posted a question, and I felt inclined to answer. Of course, people email questions, write questions. I don't always get right to them, but sometimes, especially if the timing is right and I'm about to determine what I want to talk about, this one sort of jumped out at me and I thought, maybe I'll address this quickly today and then do some other things as well. And then another question, or I was tagged in a post about a woman who was murdered, and Brittany was asking, making this statement, man, I hope Brandon would talk about this. I'd like to hear what Brandon has to say about this, something to that effect. And so I very quickly realized the two topics. Sophia's question was all about terminally ill children and her struggle with that on her spiritual journey. And then Brittany posted about, a murder, a similar, premature death from one perspective, if you will. So that's what today's show is meant to be about. Before we jump into discussing that topic, I would like to take a moment and thank every one of you guys for all the reviews that you've been leaving on iTunes over the last couple years. We just crossed 500. We're at 502 reviews. And so, woo, 500 mark. That's pretty cool. Pretty pumped about that. So I thank you guys for taking the time to review. Not only does it help us to reach new listeners, it definitely fuels my fire to continue this labor of love. And today I'm going to read a review by Alexandra Sama. Exactly what I needed when the time was right. is the title. And Alexandra wrote, "One thing I love to do with this podcast when I'm feeling down is to close my eyes and scroll randomly until I stop on an episode and then listen. It always turns out to give me exactly what I needed to hear. Episode 550 is my favorite episode by far. I cannot thank you enough for these positive messages that now vibrate throughout my life." Aw, thank you for vibrating love throughout my life, Alexandra. Definitely fuels my fire to get this kind of feedback. And yeah, I love that too. You guys hear me talk about it all the time. Having as many episodes as we do now, it's great to have the randomness to play with the universe in this way. And the Positive Head app, the forthcoming app, is going to have a feature where that's built in for people to do. And also, as I've been suggesting to you guys lately, a great way to engage friends who maybe are on the fence with it. Challenge them. Say, hey, I dare you. Choose a number, one between 570 or whatever episodes it is now. And then send them that episode and tell them, I guarantee you, the more you believe it, the more it will be true. You'll create your reality. You'll manifest it. Send it to them and say, I guarantee this will have something that really touches a nerve with you that you're meant to hear. And this is a great way to sort of show, especially people who maybe are a little more skeptical, with firsthand interaction and play with the universe as to how this stuff works. When you open up and decide you want to play with the universe, you want to have those synchronistic moments. And I challenge you guys to do that to anyone who maybe is skeptical that you think would really benefit from the show. And of course, if you haven't ever left a review on iTunes, 1,000 will be the next big mark, right? They're all big marks. All of them are beautiful, and but it's fun to hit those milestones and sort of take a moment and honor that and recognize achieving something like that, because that's a lot of reviews. So, that being said, let's see here. Oh, also, if you have questions, I've been taking questions yesterday. I'm dealing with questions today. So, I love to receive them through the Positive Heads Facebook group. If you're not on there, it's a great place to connect, ask questions, connect with other listeners. And, of course, you can write me directly through the positivehead.com website or Brandon@positivehead.com. And yeah, love to get your questions. It's a great way for us to co-create these topics, because this is your show as much as my show. I am a reflection of you. I'm an extension of you. The consciousness that animates my form is the same consciousness that animates your form, and we happen to resonate very closely, which is why you're tuning in right now. We're close cousins, close brothers, close sisters, close soul family, and I love that. And I love it when we get to play together and connect and co-create. And questions are a great way to do that. All right. Speaking of questions, let's jump in. Sophia, a.k.a. Sugar, wrote on in the Positive Heads Facebook group today. Hey, Positive Heads, new here and so lucky to have found this podcast and this group of incredible divine beings. I have been on my spiritual journey for several years now, and I'm a deep believer in the source, oneness, and manifesting our reality with our thoughts. One issue that I have always had trouble grappling with in my spirituality is terminal illness, specifically terminal illness in children. Can anyone give me some insight onto how to understand this when I'm trying to hang on to the belief that we create our own world with our thoughts? Thanks, P-Heads. Sophia, a.k.a. Sugar. All right. And then, like I said, Brittany tagged in a post about a woman named Sydney Loof who lived near her, who was murdered. They found the body, and just saying, Brandon, could you speak on this tragedy, right? So, first off, this is such a sensitive topic, and it's one that I've breached many times before, but as with many of the topics on the show, they require circling back. Reality itself is a spiral. We circle back on lessons, things for further clarification. Maybe something that is said this time sinks in a little deeper. Even those of you who are going to hear some of the things you've heard me say before. Those of you who are newer to the show and haven't heard me ever talk about this, it'll all be new, right? So, and even with myself, of course, teaching best what I most need to learn. Every time I talk about this stuff, it sinks in deeper and deeper and deeper. So we're rewiring our brains. We're creating new neural pathways every time we take on new beliefs and new understandings and deeper understandings. So my thoughts on this. Terminal illness of a child. First off, Sophia, when you expand your perspective a little bit to the idea, you said, you're a deep believer in source oneness, manifesting our reality with our thoughts, right? So what is source? Well, source is eternal. It's always been and always will be. We know that time is in itself an illusion, right? Einstein proved that. You shoot me in outer space at light speed, you bring me back a day later, I'm a day older, you've been gone 100 years or whatever it is. Any of you guys have seen the movie Interstellar, where they're on that planet with the big wave, and they're there for an extra couple minutes, and it causes like 20 years of extra time to pass on Earth? That's based off real science. Time is illusory. We know that now. You're actually in eternity, floating in eternity. This is a moment in eternity that you happen to be tuned into, right? The avatar that you are, at the age that you are, listening to the show at this very moment, that's just a moment in eternity that's always happening. Your 5th birthday party is happening on another channel. So when we talk about children, let's talk about them first of all from the perspective, let's say there's a terminally ill 3-year-old who passes, right? Which Sophia's struggling with, just to give an example. Well, first off, I don't believe that child is 3 years old. I believe that child, that soul, incarnated in the physical dimension 3 years ago, but it's an eternal being, right? It is source. It is a fractal, chip off the block of source that's always been and always will be, creating itself anew in many different ways, in many different forms, in many different avatars. And in that particular avatar, in that scenario, there is energy that is playing itself out, soul contracts that are playing themselves out with those parents. And this, by the way, goes for the murdered woman, right? Which is tragic and sort of scary and gruesome, right? These are eternal beings that are playing out soul contracts and balancing energies that we don't see the full picture of. You guys have heard me talk before about my good friend who is very empathic and psychically gifted and had been numbing herself for many years with alcohol, and then decided to go on a self-healing journey and using the plant medicine ayahuasca to do so. And during one of those ayahuasca journeys, having an experience, where she's on a whole different realm of reality using this plant medicine and interacting first off with her friend whose pregnant son, who was yet to be born, was in the womb at that moment. And she was like, wow, his soul was so vast. He's such a powerful teacher. And she even came back after the ayahuasca journey and said, oh, you're going to have a son. I met him. And the mother was like, no, I believe it's a daughter, and of course it ended up being a son. But what she saw in her journey there was she went, as she calls it, the realm of the oversoul, where she would see our oversouls, higher up the sliding scale back to us merging with source, right? You're at one level of, let's say, vantage point of source as the avatar you are, but sliding up the scale, your higher self, it's like nested dolls, right? You're one level up to the oversoul, higher self. It's this vast being. And the way it looks at your avatar in physicality as a blip, it's like a snap. It's like next to nothing in a sense. And these oversouls, she was observing their lives, their avatars, playing out multiple avatars at once, playing out lives and sort of, them being really engaged and watching and what move is going to be made next. And other times kind of yawning type energy and not even, the avatar's way off track and they could care less because it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. So, taking this expanded perspective, understanding that there's much more to the story than meets the eye. A terminally ill child, if it's passing and the parents are left with the difficult time of dealing with that and all that, there is, I believe, some level of soul contract where ultimately that child is serving the parents. It's for those left behind, and it's serving itself. It came here for a certain task. It's an eternal being. Death isn't this awful thing. It's not unconscious, it's super conscious, right? So we see it as bad when really death is a birth back to the dimension from which we came. Just like when we're born here, we forget where we came from, and it's sort of a death in a sense. So it's an invalid premise that life is good and death is bad because we're looking from within physical life, and we've got these very narrow view on what is what as far as this is concerned, and this is a big one for all of us to really understand. Someone who's murdered, what is the history with the soul between the victim and the perpetrator? What sort of energetic balancing is going on there? I don't know the whole story, but I'd be willing to bet that there's a deep story there, and there's some energetic balancing that's playing out. And in the end, that soul is a party to what's happened in some way. It is never, I don't believe there's ever been a victim in all of eternity. It's always energetic balancing. And that's a hard one for some people to really grasp onto. It upsets some people, it offends some people, and I understand that from their vantage point where they're seeing the world, how that can be a difficult one to deal with. But I have to speak my truth, and that is my truth nonetheless. I do not believe there's ever been a victim in all of eternity. I believe it's always playing itself out in divine order. I believe Source is perfectly imperfect. It looks imperfect from our narrow viewpoint, but if you could zoom out and see the whole picture, you would understand that it is exactly perfect and a perfectly woven web where everyone is always getting exactly what they need to become the next greatest and grandest version of themselves. So, with that being said, I would like to share a clip here from Abraham, Esther Hicks. I found this on the Abraham Hicks YouTube page. It goes into a little bit more information on this, expands on some of these thoughts in a way that I feel is really healing, and I feel strongly will leave a lot of you who struggle with having lost loved ones feeling much better about it in a sense, and having a new vantage point, an expanded perspective from which to connect with those loved ones who still exist. The title of this particular clip is called Parents' Tragic Death. And let's take a listen.
My mom and dad were murdered 4 years ago. And no matter what I seem to do, I seem to keep picking up both ends of the stick. So I do something, and I'm enjoying myself, and then all of a sudden, I've got the other end of the stick that I'm dragging along with me. And it feels like a betrayal. I feel like a hostage.
It feels like a condition that is controlling the way you feel.
It does.
And it's a condition that was
I feel like
big,
a bad daughter. Yeah.
big and strong and hard and blatant and really in your face and undeniable and hard to ignore. And do you think it changed you?
Yes. In awesome ways.
That's where we were about to go. So it changed you in that a condition that was so big you couldn't ignore it caused a development of a momentum within you that wasn't there before, or wasn't noticeable before, or wasn't so strong before.
Yes.
But it also, over time, has caused you to launch a powerful rocket of desire that you may never have launched had it not been for that experience.
Yes.
Do you believe that your parents, in their making their transition into non-physical, are changed too?
Yes.
And so, what part of them do you seek further relationship with? Do you accept that they are different now than they were then?
Yes.
Can you separate who they were from who they are?
Yes.
Do you realize that who they are, who they are, present tense, who they are, present tense, who they are is aware of you?
Yes.
Do you know that when you think about them, that it's one of their favorite subjects? When you think about them, do you know that they are thinking about them too?
Yeah.
That they are offering a vibration that explains who they are. That vibration, especially when you bring it into your consciousness, that vibration becomes so powerful, a rampaging vibration. And do you believe that you are, when you think about the subject that is them, ever in the vicinity of them?
Sometimes, yes.
You see, most people, when something like that happens that physical humans would call tragic, most people think that they have to stay off the subject altogether in order to find vibrational alignment with who they are, because there is just too much unwanted about that subject. Therefore, I have to stay off that subject altogether. Esther said for a while, it's like a minefield that I'm going to step on or stumble into every now and again, and it doesn't feel good when I do it. But what we really want you to hear is that when you activate, for whatever reason, the subject that is them, it activates them as they are, not as they were. And since it activates the vibration of them as they are, if you're not in the vicinity, that strong activation feels really off to you because you're not in the vicinity. Not because something tragic happened to them. Nothing tragic happened to them. They have reemerged into pure positive energy. And that's the vibration. That's who they are. So it's your offness about it that makes it feel so bad, not what happened to them. Does that make sense to you?
It does, yes. It does. Why I think I'm stuck is, like, that was awesome, and I really do appreciate that.
Yes.
I'm stuck with not being able to find them.
That's because you're not looking at them where they are.
Yeah.
You're not looking at them who they are. You're looking for who they were, and that's not who they are. And when you look for who they were, you disallow who they are, and that's why it feels bad to you. Now, if they could cease to be, you could look at who they were and you wouldn't feel that.
Right.
But since they can't cease to be, when you look at who they aren't, then you feel uncomfortable. Isn't this enlightening?
This is awesome.
It's like they say, here we are. And you say, no, you're not. And I miss you so much. And they say, here we are, here we are, here we are, here we are, here we are. And you say, no, you're not. And I miss you so much. And you know what? They never stop saying, here we are. They never stop blowing and flowing with you. They are aware and interested in everything you're interested in real time. Everyone who you've ever interacted with, and we're going back into the history of those that you don't even know you know, are aware of you. Aware of you. Interested in you. What do you think this continuum of life is all about? You see, this is this energy that is continuing to be recycled. It is consciousness that is continually brought forward into the new. Because everyone who was still wants to now be on the leading edge. So no one is past tense. Everyone is current tense. But when you, in your flawed premise, assign them past tense, then you deprive yourself of awareness of their present tense. That's what the evolution of all things is about. When Jerry made his transition, Esther for a while could not find him. And she was so irritated because she could not find him. And then one morning when she awakened and she had not yet decided to feel bad, she found him for a minute. And he explained to her, you've been looking for me where I am not. Look for me where I am. Look for me where I am. And so she had to reacquaint herself with who he now is. She had to come to know who he now is, you see. It's interesting because he taught her so much about business, so much about life, so much about interacting with so many people. He had so many sayings and so much wisdom, and she trusted his impulses so completely. And so the other day, she was dealing with a situation with work-related, and she was remembering something that he always said. And as she focused upon it, she felt a diminishment because she was really feeling good and feeling strong. And then she focused upon something that Jerry always said. And in a sort of determination to keep that sentiment alive and let it be a premise from which she continued to move forward. And she could feel him laughing about it. And she said, what? And he said, I've changed my mind about that. You're holding to what I thought. you're not receiving what I now know about that.
Right. Yeah.
And Esther thought, oh man, we got a lot of work to do. I've been trying to hold to things the way I thought you wanted them to be. I've been trying to be the way I thought you wanted everything to be. I've been trying to hold it in place. And he laughed again, like anybody could. Like you can stop expansion, like you can stop evolution. Like what you've been living since then hasn't contributed, hasn't made it more than it's ever been. We're way down the road now, he's saying. We're way down the road. Why are you back there in that old news? Come into the new. And that's what we want to say to all of you, whether you're in a situation where you have this blatant, very poignant experience of someone who was one point of view, who now is another point of view. We want you to understand that even about yourself. We've been talking about your dearly departed parents or Esther's dearly departed Jerry, and it turns out nobody departed, first of all. Nobody went anywhere. But what we really want you to hear is that split. You heard it so well. Did you see her get it? You heard it so well about never mind who they were. Focus on who they are. We want to say the same thing to you about you. All of you. Never mind who you were. And never mind even who you are in terms of current conditions that everybody else is focused upon. It's who you are vibrationally that counts. And everything else is looking back, and everything else is resistance, and everything else is a path of greater resistance, and everything else feels less good.
Yeah.
And you'd have never got to know that in the way that you now know that if it hadn't been for that experience.
So much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Enough?
No.
Yeah.
So, like I said here, it's an invalid premise. Life is good and that death is bad. Death is not unconsciousness where you go to sleep forever and that's it. It's super consciousness. It's more fulfilling, more rewarding, more, as she put it, they've reemerged into pure positive energy. It's our offness that makes it feel so bad. And, this is the part that really, for me, I definitely learned something from this clip. You're looking for who they were, not who they are. And that makes it difficult to line up, right? They are now. Everyone is current tense. Everyone you've ever known in this life and other lives, right? When you assign past tense, you deprive your self-awareness of their present tense, their expanded self. And then she uses the story, for those of you who don't know, she was referring to Jerry. Jerry was her partner for many, many years. They sort of started down the journey of this whole Abraham teachings together, where Jerry would ask Esther questions when she was communicating with the non-physical entity Abraham, which she claims is communicating through her. And, Jerry was sort of the catalyst, if you will. And here he passed recently in recent years, and she said she really struggled. She couldn't find him for many years. And the reason is she was not in alignment with what he's become, because he is constantly becoming. We're all constantly becoming. You hear about people who've had near-death experiences, how often they come back depressed to come back because of the freeness, the beauty, the expanded nature of that side of things. It's difficult for many people, and they look at the body. I've heard it said they look at the body as sort of like thank you, body, for serving me so well. Man, am I glad to be out of that. I feel so much lighter and expanded and aware, right? So these are the types of experiences. It's like reemerging back into something that is really beautiful, not this awful thing, this death is bad thing. That's a story. I've heard, Esther jokes about it. Abraham jokes about it sometimes, calling it croaking to bring a lightness to it. It's kind of like getting up in the middle of a movie and saying, yeah, I've seen enough here. I don't need to do any more. I'm eternal. There's other movies. Peace out. And if we could bring that lightness, that perspective to this whole heavy death thing, we can really enjoy the time that we're here much more fully, instead of all the fear of losing. You can't ever lose anyone. You take breaks from them. Thank goodness for the breaks, because if I had to deal with my mother or father or boyfriend or girlfriend or sister or brother or any of these different relationships that we all have, if we had to deal with them, if you had to deal with them for eternity nonstop, they would drive you crazy, but get a break and then get to reconnect again. It's like, they say absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? Some of the best relationships I've had have been long distance ones for that reason, right? Getting that break makes the coming back together so much sweeter. So, well, that's it for now, guys. I hope this really helps you to have a better understanding of this sensitive topic. And all of you, Sophia, Brittany, myself, it definitely is... death is a beautiful thing. And yes, tragedy is difficult, and especially for those left behind. Those who've passed, I believe, are reemerging into pure positive energy and are probably relieved that they've somehow balanced out energy that they came to work through. It's Earth School, and sometimes that school is challenging. This place is not for the faint of heart. This is for those of us on the cutting edge of exploration and adventure. We're the parts of Source that are really adventurous, and sometimes that adventure gets it's like a movie, where it's sometimes grim and scary and dark, but in the end, love emerges, love wins, and love is that much more fulfilling because of the darkness. Well, guys, one other thing here, music. So, looking at putting the podcast on Spotify, one of the things that has made a very important point to do that, to sort of continue to expand the show, is that if you have any music that you haven't gotten definitive rights to use, then your podcast will be blackballed and taken down and all these things. Well, a lot of times with the music, I do have the okay to use it. Other times I have not. From my perspective, I'm helping to share their music, and I have never had anyone complain. I always let them know after the fact even. But what I'm going to do in the meantime, in a step to further expansion, some of you are going to be disappointed to hear, for at least some period of time, I'm going to not be playing music at the end of the show. What I would ask, if there's anyone out there who would be willing to take on sort of music manager role, volunteer time, at least at first volunteering their time, perhaps with some level of pay, if you will, compensation for your time, effort, and energy at some point down the road. But, helping to coordinate. Okay, who are we going to play in the coming shows? Let's reach out to those people. Let's get the okay to use their music, and make sure in all instances. So I never have an issue where I put the show up on a platform and it gets taken down. That would not be something that would be going in the direction that I want to see the show to go. So if any of you guys feel so inspired or called to help with some of the coordination of getting the okay to use music before we actually play it, you can email me directly, brandon@positivehead.com, and we can talk about how that would look, what it would look like. And I certainly would appreciate anyone out there who feels inspired to contribute to the show in this way. Much gratitude. And of course, I know all of you guys love the music. I love the music. So we'll get this squared away. In the meantime, I'm just going to stop playing music for the time being until we make these arrangements. So with that being said, you guys can, by the way, go back to, let me just say, on SoundCloud, you can find a playlist of all our past shows, by month. If you go to the Positive Head SoundCloud page, if you go to Spotify and you search the Positive Head podcast songs, you'll find all the songs we've played over the last few years. So for those of you who are like, no, I don't want to, no, I want music, go back and listen to some of the great music. You probably haven't heard every episode. Maybe some of you have, but not most of you probably have not. So also, I don't know if you guys are following us on Instagram. Positive_head is a place that I haven't really ever thrown that out there before, but we actively post on Instagram these days and share clips of episodes and things like that. So if you're on Instagram and you haven't followed positive_head, follow us there. Otherwise, love you all. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful taco-tastic Tuesday whenever you are, even if it's a Wednesday or Thursday or Friday or any other day that ends in Y. I hope it's taco-tastic. Love you all. Until next time, journey well. Also, if you're craving more consciousness elevating content, be sure to check out Gaia, which is my personal go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web, where you can stream an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. As you all hear me constantly say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to journey deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place I know of to do it, period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out.